I cherish my daily jog as a means to stay fit and agile. Even in my late 60s, every morning, I laced up my running shoes and hit the neighborhood streets, determined to maintain my health and vitality. One autumn morning, my peaceful routine took a disturbing turn. The usual tranquility of the neighborhood was disrupted by the persistent sound of footsteps behind me. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it might be another jogger on the same route. But as the footsteps grew nearer and more relentless, I sensed something was amiss. My heart began to race, and I decided to glance over my shoulder. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. A tall man in a dark overcoat was following me, his gaze intent and menacing. Fear gripped me, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I veered into a nearby park, hoping to lose my pursuer among the winding paths. To my dismay, he stayed close, maintaining an uncomfortably close distance. Panic threatened to overwhelm me, but I was determined not to be an easy target. As I rounded a bend in the path, I spotted a park ranger station in the distance. Drawing upon every ounce of strength, I sprinted toward it, shouting for help. A burly ranger named Jack quickly came to my aid. I pointed out my stalker, and the ranger confronted him. The police were called, and the stalker was taken into custody. However, as the man was led away in handcuffs, he locked eyes with me one last time. His gaze was filled with an unsettling, almost supernatural intensity. A shiver ran down my spine, and I couldn't help but feel that his malevolence transcended the confines of a jail cell. Late that night, as I lay in bed, the room grew cold and eerie. I heard faint whispers, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners. Panic surged as I realized that the stalker's presence was no longer confined to the physical world. The chilling truth was that his malevolent spirit had crossed over into my life, haunting my every step. From that day on, my once peaceful life turned into a relentless nightmare. The stalker's haunting presence became a dark and ever-present specter, a reminder that true terror could persist long after the physical threat had been removed. Under the dimly fading light of early evening, I laced up my sneakers and embarked on my daily jog along the familiar forest path. The serene trail meandered through the woods, with towering trees casting elongated shadows on the ground. This was my sanctuary, an escape from the daily chaos of life. As I picked up my pace, an unsettling sensation began to gnaw at me, a prickling unease in the pit of my stomach. It was as if someone was following me, lurking in the shadows. I brushed it off initially, attributing it to my imagination playing tricks on me in the eerie atmosphere. But the sensation refused to fade. Twigs snapped, and barely audible footsteps seemed to echo behind me. With growing unease, I finally glanced over my shoulder, and there, just at a distance, was a man. His face was concealed by a hood, and he was following me with sinister determination. Panic surged through me, and I increased my speed. I knew I couldn't keep running from this stranger. I had to do something about it. So, I made a quick decision and veered off the main path, sprinting deeper into the dense forest. The trees loomed overhead, and I hoped the labyrinth of nature would confuse my pursuer. I crouched behind a massive tree, hiding, my breath ragged and my heart pounding. I watched as the hooded figure passed, searching for me. Fear and determination swirled within me, and I knew I had to take action. With a sturdy branch in hand, I approached the man from behind, summoning all my strength. In a swift, instinctive motion, I struck him on the head. He collapsed, unconscious. Gasping for breath, I called the police, providing them with my location. They arrived swiftly, and I pointed them in the direction of the man who had been stalking me. As they led him away, he regained consciousness and cast me a malevolent glare. I knew that by confronting my fears and taking action, I had thwarted a potentially perilous situation. I resumed my jog, more determined and cautious than ever. My forest sanctuary remained, But now, I had discovered a newfound strength within myself. I could face the darkness that might lurk in the shadows, and I would continue to do so, unafraid and resilient. James, a high school teenager and avid football player, was devoted to his sport. When his football gym coach recommended jogging as a way to stay in shape outside of practice, he embraced the idea. Little did he know that this decision would lead him down a path of horror. One evening, as he jogged through his quiet suburban neighborhood, he couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end, as he sensed an eerie presence lurking just out of sight. He quickened his pace, looking over his shoulder nervously, but saw nothing unusual. As days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to unfold. At home, James noticed objects moving on their own, doors creaking open, and whispers in the dark. In school, his classmates started acting strangely, as if under the influence of some unseen force. He couldn't escape the feeling that he was being watched. Even in the supposed safety of his own home, terrified, he decided to stop jogging altogether. He hoped that by avoiding the path where this nightmare had begun, he could put an end to the bizarre occurrences that were plaguing him. But it was too late. One fateful night, James was awakened by a chilling whisper in his ear. He sat up in bed to see a shadowy figure at the foot of his bed. The figure's eyes glowed with an otherworldly intensity. As it whispered, "You can't escape me," James screamed and turned on the light. But the figure had vanished. His parents rushed into the room, but they couldn't find any explanation for what he had experienced. The horror continued to intensify. James couldn't sleep, eat, or find solace anywhere. The whispering figure haunted his every move, and his life became a living nightmare. In the end, James was found lifeless in his room, a look of sheer terror etched on his face. The unexplainable horrors that had plagued him had taken their toll. His family and friends could only wonder at the malevolent force that had pursued him, even beyond the confines of his evening jogs.